How's it going, guys? Andrew here with Justified EDC, and I wanted to show you guys something that I got in the mail today. This is, as you can see here, the Kizer and Mojave Outdoor collaboration knife. And this is actually the second version of it. This is the original. And I'd seen a lot of positive reviews on this from a lot of different people that I have watched their reviews before and found them to be trustworthy, so I went ahead and I picked one up. I wanted to see for myself. And overall, I'd say it's pretty on par with what I expected. I've had some other Kizers here in the past. The only other one I have on hand here actually is the mini Begleiter in micarta, the little Warncliffe reverse Tonto type blade shape. This one is actually sold already. I sold this to one of my friends, but I still have it on hand for right now. So I was just going to use that as a size comparison. So actually stacked up next to each other, they're pretty similar in terms of overall length. You get a little more cutting edge on the original than you do on this. But I actually expected the original to be slightly bigger. It's actually a fairly small knife. So some other size comparisons that I have here, I don't have a lot on hand because I'm actually not at my place right now, is the CJRB Ria. This is the G10 one. But again, the Ria is not a big knife, and it is almost exactly the same size as the original. You actually get the exact same amount of sharpened blade length, a little thicker in the handle on the original than the Ria. And then something that's definitely bigger is the Petrified Fish Knives Beluga. This is the full size. They do have a mini that, if I'm correct, I believe is actually around the same size as the original. I'm actually a little more interested in that one than I am in this. This one's a decent knife, but it's not for me. It's a little big, kind of clunky. I mean, like, the action's good, but a little clunky. So anyways, there's a size comparison there. And then one that I will probably continue to use on this channel because you'll see it the most is the Emerson Elvia. And again, in terms of sharpened blade length, you get a little more on the Elvia. If you put them like that, you can really tell. In terms of grip area, your grip area is smaller on the original. But again, on the original, one of the things you can do is you can choke up here. The sharpening choil leading into this part of the handle you can use as a forward finger choil. So anyways, now the size comparison's out of the way. What you got on here is you have two aluminum scales for your handle. You have a 154 cm blade, which in my experience, Kizer's 154 cm is pretty good. Thumb stud deployment, you can reverse flick it, you can thumb flick it, you can slow roll it. The D10 is pretty well dialed in. One issue I did have with this right out of the box is after doing this a couple times, maybe 24 times, the pivot already started to loosen up. I did notice that right out of the box, it's not perfectly centered, and that just continued to get worse as I play with it. So all I did is I backed the pivot out, put some blue Loctite on it, put that on, and I let it sit for a little while. And that seems to have solved it. The centering still isn't perfect, which was surprising considering that Kizer's usually pretty good about that. Here's the mini Begleiter, perfectly centered. But this one also had the same problem with the pivot, where it came with great lockup, great action, and as you started to play with it, that pivot started to loosen up, and I had to back it out, put blue Loctite on it, and let it sit. But again, now it's perfect. So I don't know. A lot of the reviews that I've watched have said that Kizer's quality is pretty consistent. I'd say for the most part that's correct, but I have had a couple now with this issue in the pivot, which is, it's not a big deal. It's not that hard to fix. It's just for a brand new knife, you would think that you would be getting a knife without that issue right out of the box. So just something to be aware of. Your mileage may vary. I know a lot of people that have reviewed these have had no problems with that, so it could just be the one that I got that's like that. The only other issue that I had with it was the pocket clip. I do like that the pocket clip has a milled out section for it to sit flat in, and it's using flush screws. That's very nice. There's nothing for it to get caught on your pocket. But was kind of in vain because this pocket clip, before I did anything to it, was very tight. I couldn't even get it. The spring tension is tight, and this lip was very much pointed downward. I should have started this before I made any modifications to it to give you guys an idea of what it looked like before. But I actually decreased the spring tension by bending this outward a little bit more, and I got underneath here and bent this lip up a little bit. It's easier now to get into the pocket. It's still not great. Once it's in the pocket, it's great. It's very deep carry. It's easy to get out of the pocket, but yeah, that was just kind of odd. Also considering that all of the other clips that I've had from Kizer haven't been a problem. This one has been fine. There's a decent amount of spring tension on it, but not a lot. There's enough clearance to get it in and out of the pocket all right. So I don't know. Again, it was just one of those things that I was kind of surprised because I hadn't heard anyone else talk about it. So just figured I'd let you guys be aware of that. But other than that, yeah, this is the gunmetal variety, gunmetal handles, satin blade, all black hardware. I believe it also comes with a black coated handle and a black blade, a green coated handle and a black blade, and then I think they're releasing the version 2 with a copper, like a black washed copper and a black blade. I don't know if there's going to be a copper version with a satin as well, but as of right now, that's the only one I've seen online. The other difference that there seems to be on the version 2 is that there's no logo on the clip, which is a plus in my book because I always think that the logo on the clip looks a little tacky, which is another thing I do like about this. All the billboarding on this knife is very minimal. I can't even really call it billboarding. You got Kizer and Mojave there, serial number, and then just the blade steel here on the other side. Very unobtrusive. And then you have the name on the top here with the color variant, which could have done without, but whatever. Thumb studs are very easy to use. You have a good access on both sides. You could easily use this as a lefty. Unfortunately, the clip is not reversible, so you can only carry this right-handed, but you can flick it from both sides. You can access that button lock from both sides. So that's cool. And that brings me to the last part, is the button lock. The button lock, some people were saying that they were getting theirs with a little bit of lock stick. I did not have that problem. Mine came very smooth. And now that I messed with the pivot a little bit, there's no blade play and it falls shut very freely. You can swing it open with the button as well. And when that button is fully engaged, there's no play up, down, left, right, anything like that. It's very solid now that I messed with the pivot. However, this is not necessarily the fault of this particular design, but more a fault of the button lock, that in certain grips, particularly this forward grip, this forward like hammer grip edge in, when I can't really, again with my hand right now, I can't grasp it too hard. But I guess it would actually work for lefties too. When you kind of hammer fist down on this, you press, the button is indented into the scale, but not enough. So that when you really grip down on this, you start to get play. And if you actually do it enough, you can get that blade to disengage. So if you were doing some kind of draw cut, or this knife actually works decently in the Picot grip because of this extra section here. Depending on where your finger was spaced, you could disengage that button lock. Not a big deal because that's not really what this knife is for. Just something to be aware of. Again, in a normal grip like this, unless you are really moving your thumb in there a weird direction, you can get it to disengage. But a normal just hammer grip like that, I didn't have any problem. Obviously, saber grip is no problem because your thumb is out of the way. Choking up, no problem. And normal reverse grip, I didn't see an issue either. Actually there you get it to disengage a little bit. So just something to be aware of. Again, I don't think you're really going to be using this knife in those grips, but if for some reason you wanted to get this and that was your intention, maybe this isn't the one for you. Other than that, that's really all I had to say about this. Again, this is just a first impressions. I will be doing some testing on this. I might carry it at work for a little bit. It's kind of, some of the other people that reviewed this said this was a really thinly ground edge. It is thin relative to a lot of folders out there, but it's not the thinnest in the world. Like, I'd say it might be like 16 to 18 thousandths behind the edge, which is still thin. But Kizer has been known to do some really thin grinds, especially on stuff like this. If you've ever had a Kizer Roach, especially the new mini ones, these are insanely thin grinds. Some of the larger Begleiters, I believe, are a thinner grind. I haven't had a lot of as many Kizers as some of the people on here, but the ones I have had seem to be ground decently thin. So it was just a little bit surprising. I think some people kind of overstated how thin this grind was. Either that or mine is a little bit weird, which is also possible coming from a Chinese company. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys my first thoughts. Again, here's a size comparison. The mini Begleiter. I know a lot of people have had this, so that should be able to give you a good size comparison. Just so you don't be like me and think that this knife is a little bit bigger than it actually is. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and let me know if you have any questions about this down in the comments. I'd be happy to get back to you with any details or specs or anything like that, and I'll see you in the next one.